You are standing in a store holding something you do not need. Your heart is racing slightly. Your mind is generating reasons why you should buy it. It is on sale. You deserve a reward. You have been working hard. Everyone else has won. Your finger hovers over the buy button online, or your hand reaches for your wallet in person. This moment happens dozens of times each week. And in this moment, you are not making a financial decision. You are having an emotional reaction. Impulse spending is not about the object. It is about the feeling you are trying to create or avoid. This video will show you how the Stoics approach desire, how emotional discipline eliminates the need for impulse spending, and how ancient wisdom provides the most effective strategy for financial control in a world designed to make you buy. There was a man who earned well but saved nothing. Every month, his entire paycheck disappeared. Not on bills or necessities, but on things that seemed important at the time of purchase but meaningless days later. New shoes he wore once. Electronics he never unboxed. Subscriptions he forgot he had. Books he never read. When he reviewed his bank statements, he could not remember half of the purchases. They had felt urgent in the moment, necessary even, but in retrospect, they were invisible. His apartment was full of objects, but his savings account was empty. He was rich in possessions, but poor in capital preservation. He told himself he would start saving next month, but next month always brought new things that felt essential, new things that promised to solve problems or create happiness. The cycle never stopped because he never examined why it started. One evening, after discovering he could not cover an unexpected car repair, he sat surrounded by hundreds of purchases he did not need and could not afford. Designer clothes still tagged, gaming equipment still boxed, kitchen gadgets never used. He calculated the total value and felt sick. He had spent enough to cover 6 months of emergencies on objects that provided zero actual value to his life. This was not a wealth mindset. This was sabotage. He had been sabotaging his own financial independence one small purchase at a time. Each individual purchase felt harmless, but accumulated over months and years, they had cost him his peace and his security. He began researching how to stop impulse spending and discovered approaches that all failed him. Budgeting apps that he ignored. Spending limits that he justified exceptions to, shopping bans that he broke, accountability partners who could not be with him every moment. All of these approaches treated the symptom without addressing the cause. They tried to control his behavior without understanding his psychology. They assumed impulse spending was a discipline problem when it was actually an emotional problem. You cannot solve an emotional problem with a behavioral rule. The emotion will always find a way around the rule. Then he encountered Stoicism and discovered something that actually worked. The Stoics did not fight desire with willpower. They eliminated desire through understanding. They did not restrict spending through rules. They removed the urge to spend through wisdom. This was not about denying himself. It was about seeing clearly what he was actually doing when he reached for his wallet. The Stoics taught him to pause between impulse and action, to examine the space where desire lives, to ask questions that reveal truth. This approach transformed his relationship with money completely because it addressed the root rather than trimming the branches. Epictetus taught a fundamental distinction that changes everything about impulse spending. He said there are things within our control and things beyond our control. Your desire for an object is within your control. The object itself is not. The happiness you imagine the object will bring is not. The status you think the object will provide is not. These are all external and therefore unreliable. When you buy based on imagined future feelings, you are trying to control the uncontrollable. You are setting yourself up for disappointment. The purchase might bring brief satisfaction, but the satisfaction will fade. It always does. And then you will need another purchase to create another brief moment of satisfaction. This is the cycle of impulse spending. It is not about the objects. It is about chasing a feeling that cannot be captured through acquisition. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journals about desire itself. He noted that most of what we want because others have it, because culture tells us we should want it, because advertising has convinced us we need it. Very little of what we desire comes from genuine internal need. Remove the external influences and most desires disappear. He practiced a simple technique. Before acquiring anything, he would imagine he already owned it for a year. Would it still matter? Would it still provide value? Or would it become invisible like most possessions do? This practice killed 90% of his desires instantly, not through deprivation but through honest projection. He was not denying himself. He was seeing clearly that most acquisitions lead nowhere. Seneca went further. He practiced voluntary poverty periodically. He would spend days living as if he had lost everything, eating simple food, wearing basic clothes, sleeping on a hard surface. This practice served two purposes. It proved to him that he would survive loss, and it revealed how little he actually needed to be content. After these periods, his regular life felt abundant. His normal possessions felt like luxury. This recalibration made impulse spending nearly impossible because he could see clearly the difference between need and want. Most of what he wanted was just habituation. His baseline had crept up without him noticing. The voluntary poverty practice reset the baseline. It restored perspective. It killed the impulse because it eliminated the sense of lack that impulse feeds on. Consider the analogy of hunger. Physical hunger is real. It is a signal that your body needs fuel. But most eating is not about hunger. It is about boredom, stress, habit, emotion. You eat not because your body needs food, but because your mind needs something. Comfort, distraction, pleasure. The food never actually provides what you are seeking. It provides temporary relief, but the underlying need remains. Impulse spending works the same way. You are not buying the object. You are trying to buy a feeling, security, status, excitement, control. The object never actually provides the feeling. It provides a momentary illusion. Then the feeling fades and you need another purchase, another temporary fix. The cycle continues until you address the actual need instead of medicating it with acquisition. If you have ever bought something to feel better and felt worse days later when reviewing your bank account, write "examine" in the comments. Let that word remind you to look beneath your purchases to the emotions driving them. Now we translate Stoic wisdom into practical techniques that kill impulse spending permanently. These are not tricks or hacks. They are practices that change your relationship with desire itself. They work because they address the root cause rather than fighting the symptom. The first technique is the 72-hour rule with depth. You already know this rule. Before any non-essential purchase, wait 3 days. But the Stoics add layers that make it actually effective. During those 72 hours, do not just wait passively. Actively examine the desire. Write down exactly why you want this object. Not surface reasons, but real reasons. Are you buying status? Are you buying distraction? Are you buying the fantasy of who you would be if you owned this? Are you buying to fill a void? Are you buying because you are bored? The writing forces honesty. You cannot lie to yourself as easily on paper. Most desires, when examined honestly, reveal themselves as attempts to solve internal problems with external objects. Once you see this clearly, the desire loses power. The second technique is negative visualization applied to purchases. Before buying something, imagine you bought it 6 months ago. It is now sitting in your closet or storage or drawer. You have not used it in weeks. You have forgotten you own it. It is just another object among hundreds of objects. How do you feel about that purchase now from 6 months in the future? The Stoics used this practice constantly. They projected forward to see how present desires would appear from future perspective. Almost everything we want today will be invisible tomorrow. Seeing this clearly kills the impulse, because the impulse depends on imagining the object will matter permanently. When you realize it will matter briefly at best, the urgency dissolves. The third technique is the replacement question. When you feel the urge to buy something, ask yourself, what am I actually trying to accomplish? Then ask, can I accomplish this without spending? If you want to feel better, can you call a friend instead of buying something? If you want excitement, can you start a project instead of acquiring something? If you want status, can you build a skill instead of displaying wealth? Almost every emotional need that drives impulse spending can be met more effectively through free actions. But we reach for our wallets because spending is easy and instant. It requires no real effort, no vulnerability, no time. The Stoics would say this is exactly why it does not work. Anything worth having requires real effort. Quick fixes never fix anything. They just delay the real work. The fourth technique is the true cost calculation. Calculate how many hours you work to earn the purchase price after taxes. A $200 purchase might represent 16 hours of work. Ask yourself, is this object worth 16 hours of my life? Would I trade 16 hours of my limited time on Earth for this object? This reframes money as life energy rather than abstract numbers. You are not spending $200. You are spending 16 hours of your life that you will never get back. Most purchases fail this test immediately. You would not trade hours of your life for most of the things you buy impulsively. But you do not see the connection because money abstracts the trade. The Stoics insisted on seeing clearly. They refused comforting illusions. They wanted truth even when truth was uncomfortable. The fifth technique is the gratitude inventory. Before buying anything new, spend 10 minutes appreciating what you already own. Look at your clothes, your electronics, your books, your kitchen equipment. Most of it is unused. Most of it was purchased impulsively. Most of it promised something it did not deliver. You already have more than you use, more than you need, more than you appreciate. The desire for something new is not because you lack. It is because you have lost sight of what you possess. The Stoics practiced gratitude obsessively because gratitude eliminates desire. You cannot simultaneously feel grateful for what you have and desperate for what you lack. Gratitude and greed cannot coexist. When you reconnect with appreciation for your current abundance, the impulse to acquire more disappears. The sixth technique is the exposure practice. Go to stores or browse online with the explicit intention of not buying anything. Practice being surrounded by desirable objects while choosing not to acquire them. This trains your discipline muscle. It proves to you that you can want something and not buy it. That desire does not have to lead to action. That you are capable of feeling the pull and not responding. Most people avoid this practice because it feels uncomfortable. But discomfort is where growth lives. The Stoics sought out discomfort deliberately because they knew comfort makes you weak and discomfort makes you strong. Each time you successfully resist an impulse, you become more resistant to future impulses. The muscle strengthens through use. The seventh technique is the replacement with experience. When you feel the urge to buy an object, buy an experience instead, but not an expensive experience. A simple one, a hike, a museum visit, a picnic, time with a friend. Research consistently shows that experiences provide more lasting satisfaction than possessions. Objects fade into background invisibility. Experiences become memories that compound in value over time. The Stoics understood this instinctively. Seneca wrote about the poverty of the man who owns everything but experiences nothing, about the wealth of the man who owns little but lives fully. When you redirect spending impulses towards simple experiences, you satisfy the underlying emotional need more effectively. You are no longer medicating. You are actually healing. The eighth technique is the identity shift. Stop identifying as someone who buys things. Start identifying as someone who builds wealth. Identity drives behavior more powerfully than willpower. When buying something conflicts with your identity, you will not buy it. Not because you are restricting yourself, but because it feels wrong. It feels inconsistent with who you are. The man from our story made this shift. He stopped seeing himself as a consumer and started seeing himself as a builder. Builders do not waste resources on unnecessary acquisitions. They invest resources in what matters. This shift eliminated 90% of his impulse spending without any feeling of deprivation. He was not denying himself. He was being himself, and himself did not waste money on things that did not serve his purpose. The ninth technique is the accountability through tracking. Keep a journal of every impulse you feel and whether you acted on it, not to shame yourself but to see patterns. You will notice that certain emotional states trigger spending: stress, boredom, sadness, anxiety. You will notice that certain environments trigger spending: certain websites, certain stores, certain friends. You will notice that certain times trigger spending: late night, weekends, after work. Once you see the patterns, you can interrupt them. You can avoid trigger environments. You can develop alternative responses to trigger emotions. You can schedule different activities during trigger times. The Stoics called this knowing yourself. They insisted that self-knowledge is the foundation of self-control. You cannot change what you do not see. Tracking makes you see. The 10th technique is the contribution practice. Before buying something for yourself, buy something for someone else. Or better, give to someone in need. This practice accomplishes several things simultaneously. It delays the impulse. It redirects resources toward actual impact. It reminds you that you have enough to give. It connects you to something larger than yourself. It proves that happiness comes from generosity more than acquisition. The Stoics were not ascetics who rejected pleasure, but they understood that the deepest pleasure comes from virtue, and generosity is virtue in action. When you practice giving before getting, you recalibrate your relationship with money entirely. You move from scarcity to abundance, from grasping to releasing, from poverty consciousness to wealth consciousness. The man from our story implemented these techniques systematically, not all at once, gradually, one technique per month. The 72-hour rule first, then negative visualization, then true cost calculation. Each technique revealed something about his psychology. Each technique reduced his impulse spending substantially. But the real transformation happened when he combined all the techniques together. They became a comprehensive system for relating to desire. He still wanted things occasionally, but the wanting did not control him. He could observe the desire without acting on it. He could feel the pull without responding to it. He had developed what the Stoics called equanimity, not the absence of desire, but the freedom to choose how to respond to desire. His savings grew rapidly once he stopped leaking money through impulse purchases, not because he earned more, because he wasted less. He calculated that he had been spending $3,000 monthly on impulse purchases, $36,000 yearly. Over 10 years, that was $360,000 plus lost investment returns. He had been sabotaging his own financial independence to the tune of $500,000. This realization was devastating but also liberating. The problem was not his income. The problem was his spending, and his spending was under his control. He could not control the economy or his employer or the market, but he could control his response to desire. That control was enough. Consider what your life would look like if you killed impulse spending completely, not through painful restriction but through clear seeing. If you bought only what you genuinely needed and truly wanted after examination. If your purchases served your actual life rather than your imagined life. If you stopped medicating emotions with objects. If you stopped trying to buy your way to happiness, you would not feel deprived. You would feel liberated. Liberated from the endless cycle of desire and disappointment. Liberated from the anxiety of wasted money. Liberated from the clutter of unnecessary possessions. Liberated to build actual wealth rather than the appearance of wealth. The Stoics teach that freedom is not having everything you want. Freedom is wanting only what you have. This sounds like deprivation to modern ears, but it is actually the opposite. The person who wants everything is enslaved by wanting. The person who wants nothing beyond what they have is free. They are not suppressing desire. They have transcended desire through understanding. They see that objects do not deliver what they promise. That acquisition does not lead to satisfaction. That more does not solve the problem of never enough. This seeing is liberation. Seneca wrote that the man who is not satisfied with a little will never be satisfied with much. Impulse spending is the behavior of someone who is not satisfied, who believes the next purchase will finally bring contentment, who keeps trying the same solution that has never worked. The Stoic kills impulse spending by becoming satisfied, not through acquiring everything but through needing less, not through having more but through appreciating what is. This satisfaction is not resignation, it is wisdom. It is seeing clearly that you already have enough. That more will not make you happier, that the answer is not in your shopping cart, it is in your perspective. True financial control begins with impulse control. You cannot build wealth while hemorrhaging money on unnecessary purchases. You cannot achieve financial independence while enslaved to every passing desire. The Stoic way to kill impulse spending is not through restriction but through examination, through seeing clearly what you are actually doing when you buy impulsively, through understanding the emotions driving the behavior, through addressing the real needs instead of medicating them with objects. This approach works because it eliminates the desire itself rather than fighting it endlessly with willpower. Subscribe to Money and Stoicism to master your finances and your mind. Like this video if you seek true freedom.